welcome to the first of our new series of virtual Women in Tech meetups, Ladies Who Launch. So for our first of the new series, we are focusing on ladies who are spearheading businesses, specifically within the Salesforce Consulting Services partner space. Just as a bit of background for those of you who are new to Women in Tech Republic, myself and some of my colleagues at Third Republic founded the community at the end of last year because we wanted to provide a platform for women in all facets of technology to be able to share and receive knowledge. Since then, we've grown to a community of over 2,500 women in tech from across the UK, the US, Germany, and the Netherlands. At the beginning of July, we ran our first Global Women in Tech Week, which saw over 500 attendees across 4 events. Off the back of these events, we noticed a high demand for meetups that provide female entrepreneurs a platform to share their experiences, offer advice, and provide inspiration to other entrepreneurial women. With that said, we're excited to be joined by 2 incredible women who are true leaders in the Salesforce ecosystem, Sara Hale, co-founder and managing partner of CoastalCloud, and Deena Tearney, founder and CEO of Pacific Point. So Sara will be discussing practices that will enable other thought leaders like herself to improve their businesses and the lives of their teams, while Deena will discuss the thought processes around thinking like a CEO and discussing how one can calculate risks when building their own business. So with that, I'm going to let Sara take it away.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm Sara Hale. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of CoastalCloud. And today I'm presenting on how I think companies can change what they measure and change the traditional workspace so that it really opens up a workplace to a more diverse talent, a more diverse work pool, but also being extremely profitable while doing that. So anyway, okay, so I'm going to start with a little bit of background about CoastalCloud, and then the philosophy on how we started our company, and then sort of a funny look at the historical look at the workplace, and then just some tips on how I think other companies can implement things that will allow for a more diverse workforce. Okay, so just a quick background on us. We are a Salesforce consulting partner. We're platinum level. We're also do the nonprofit. We're a premier partner there. We've had 745 clients and completed a whole bunch of projects. Everyone's certified. We believe in clients for life. 70% of our new work comes from existing clients. We are about 220 consultants. We are 44% women, which I'm super proud of for an IT consulting firm. We're 100% onshore, and our tagline is "Live at the beach, work in the cloud." We try to be really easy to work with, and that has been worked out well for us. We have our people located everywhere. Our headquarters are in Palm Coast, Florida, but we have solution centers in Denver, Colorado, Louisville, Kentucky, and the Washington, D.C. area. But this is a map of our solution centers and then where our people are. We pay unemployment insurance in the 27 states, I think, right now. But today I wanted to talk about how, other companies can implement a framework that allows for more diversity and inclusion, while also, making your client successful, which is what will keep you in business, and also running it so that, we are in business to be profitable, and that doing these things aren't just about trying to cater to a more diverse workforce. It's my belief that it makes the company much more successful if you implement these things. So these are just some statistics. According to LinkedIn research, only 28% of software engineers are women, and that number has only gone up 3% over the 15 years. Even worse is that the women in leadership has only risen by 2.3%. And that it generally, is there an unconscious bias that distorts perceptions in our tech sector? And will we continue to lose top talent if we don't make changes that are keeping women from becoming leaders in the tech industry? So here's just a little bit of a historical look at the workplace. I'm going to go through these quickly, but they're just sort of fun how time has changed. Here's 1950s in real life, and then how it was presented on TV. Then we moved into the 1980s, and the workplace is starting to look a little different, and it was presented differently in movies. I'm not sure if you all remember 9 to 5. And then we move into the 2010s, and here's where it is in real life, and then how it was represented in TV shows. So it's interesting to see how the media is also changing the way they represent the workplace. And now I added this slide today. Welcome to 2020. We are all on Zoom meetings, working remotely. And this was our last year's happy hour, virtual happy hour, because our team is all remote. So we were doing it for a while with all the gifts we were giving. And I have a feeling that this may repeat this year. So, and then of course, in real life, we also have what we affectionately refer to as interns, which are other people now in the house that are becoming a part of your work environment. And then of course, no TV shows are being made. So now we're just all binge watching what we were watching in 2020 on TV. But the main point is the definition of the workplace is changing because the workforce is changing, and it's no longer your grandfather's workforce. It is changing, and so the goal of this presentation is to talk about diversity and inclusion can improve your employee satisfaction. It can bring great client success and retain your customers, but it can also be profitable and sustain your business model. So a little bit of CoastalCloud's philosophy was balancing work with career, with health and family, and how to do that. We started this company together, my husband and I, and we really wanted to create the company that we would have wanted to work for. We had both worked for a large consulting firm, and I had traveled for 7 years straight, going on site to clients every week, and did not think that that was going to be the way, if I wanted to raise a family, that I wanted to prioritize my goals outside of work as well as my goals inside of work. So one of the solutions is that you can telecommute, and does it really matter where you work? And there are pros and cons to it, but it can be easy to do. And of course, now in the COVID world, everyone's been doing a lot of telecommuting, and hopefully people are realizing it can work. But there are debates about it. So there can be pitfalls to telecommuting. Here's an example of the interns that come in to help you. And then, and then there's questions about whether, are people being as productive at home? But, certainly there's a lot of unproductive time in an office space as well. If you talk about, football games from the past weekend or other things in the break room, you can have productivity lapses in both home environments and work environments. And it may not be for everyone. It is not for everyone, and it might not work, and companies have to do that. And there are challenges with it. People might work on different schedules. Will you have the same connections with your people? How do you gauge productivity if everyone's working remotely? In some companies, you just can't do it. Now, actually, for Salesforce consulting work, it's great because we can do everything through the cloud, and that's great. But there are different types of businesses that do need more of a physical presence in order to be successful. And but it might work for you, and it can include this better work-life balance, which might lead to lower turnover and better retention of your staff. And do you really need people to complete their work between 9 and 5? Or can you just say, you need to get your projects done? You need to be on a project schedule, which gives a little bit more flexibility if you need to go, drive carpool from 3 to 4 every day. But you can just mark on Google Calendar that you're unavailable then and still get your work done. So it offers some flexibility with that. There might be fewer distractions. You might not, talk to people in the break room or get distracted by other people's phone calls. There's actual studies that show that, they lose 1.8 trillion a year in productivity, in a traditional workplace. So maybe you're actually getting more productivity from your remote workers. No commute might mean higher morale and less stress. It certainly cuts cost. Dry cleaning clothes can, the cost can go down, and you can maybe be more productive depending on where you live, and which can put you in a better mood, and you might miss work less. It's greener, it can help the planet, it reduces pollution. So there's all kinds of positive things about telecommuting. And certainly we're all living it now. And if we do have a discussion at the end, I'd love to hear any pros and cons of people that weren't telecommuting pre-COVID and how it has worked for them, because I think we can always be learning on how you can engage with your team and still feel a part of it. So, all right, so solution number 2 is flexibility. If you can allow people to telecommute, you can expand who you're hiring despite the location. And you can hire people that do have some responsibilities outside of their work that then will give you access to more talented people if you can be flexible with how they schedule their time to meet their needs. It can help people have proactive health practices, which is important. Employee health is a big cost for companies, and encouraging people to live healthy lifestyles might be more easily obtained if you give them some flexibility in their schedule to get their work done. So just for tips on how to make a more flexible workplace, there are still a lot of things you can do. We use Google, so we can check in on Google Chat all the time to quickly ask people questions. You can schedule daily stand-ups. We always do Zoom videos so that you're actually still seeing people and can maybe see if they look stressed out or if they look happy, and you can see how their well-being is doing. And then I think you can change what are the key performance metrics or indicators that you're measuring, so that you're measuring more that they're completing their work and projects and not necessarily that they're online from 9 to 5. And then you need to socialize this and set expectations. And most importantly, you all need to remember to laugh a little. This came out a couple of years ago when it was a big important press conference, and the little child came out in the background, and then the mom came out and tried to pull him out of the scenery. So funny things do happen when you're telecommuting, and when you have dogs and other kinds of things in the background, and it's okay. I think also, as we're looking at diversity in the workforce, it's important to have inclusive interviews. It's important when you're trying to look for the talent that the people that you're trying to hire can see who makes up your workplace. Can they see themselves working there? Are they asking the type of questions? Do they feel that their outside of work priorities will be respected and it won't hold them back from getting promoted in their jobs and in their careers? So, and then I think it's just important that there is a lot of focus on this right now. And there's certainly a lot of programs putting STEM into the schools, and lots of focus groups like the one we're on today. But I guess what's also really important is in the companies themselves to be truly changing what they're measuring, so that it is retaining those people or providing a workforce that allows people who are trying to meet these goals outside of work. And make sure your candidates don't all come from the same mold. So when you are interviewing, are there women involved in the process? Will the interviewing panels be diverse? Will they be able to speak to how they're managing if they need to travel for work, and what that means to how to solve some of the other logistics in the household that might need to be taken care of? Will they see that they fit in? And then you need to align the goals of your organization. What are you measuring to success? How are you measuring that? Are we just measuring it on billable hours and other things that aren't the answer, that you need to physically be in the office building from 9 to 5 in order to show that you're committed? There's this great all-female law firm out of Jacksonville that they changed what they measure for their people and how they sell to their clients. And they've been incredibly successful. Instead of billing an hourly rate and then promoting people who have a lot of billable hours, they actually do fixed price services to their clients. So it's more, they do it deliverable based on what they're planning to provide. And they promote people on the quality of the work. And if a great talented lawyer wants to manage to a 30-hour week schedule, but they're doing great work, that is supported and rewarded, and they can be promoted there. And I think it's little things that can make huge differences on retaining the best talent, but also giving opportunities for people who are very talented that can't commit to this 60-hour work week over and over again. So there's just lots of things you can do that can, and they're super profitable and they're successful, and that's great. And then it's technology, as we talk about women in tech. That is the technology that is enabling this more flexible work schedule. You can schedule when you're available for meetings during regular hours and when you aren't. You can use Zoom so that we feel present. You can use Google Chat. You can implement products like Salesforce for your clients, and allow those businesses to be successful while doing it from home. And that's wonderful, because that didn't exist for me 25 years ago. I had to physically be on site and logged into their networks with their big servers and their computers in order to complete, this cool solutioning and business solution work, computer work that we were trying to do. You couldn't do it from home. It's important to recruit differently. Not all tech candidates went to tech schools. So, you need to think about that, and you can find great talented people by looking for aptitude and going to different places. And we expect everyone to get certified on the Salesforce platform before joining us. And if they can do it on their own and they can figure it out, and they can appear to have good analytical skills, we won't care that they don't have a tech background. We believe we can train the technology. It's some of these other skills that are harder to find. We also think women may not go after promotion as much, so it's important to really track and highlight promotions and make sure you're doing that equally, even if it's not being asked for. And I think most importantly, everything's always changing, and it's important to always, get your staff to help you. We always say we don't have any recruiters, everyone's recruiting. We don't have anyone in sales, everyone's in sales. But it's really our team that can help us find more diverse candidates and can sell the company more than sometimes your other more traditional ways can do. And then finally, to really talk and promote about your benefits for women, because not one size does fit all. Instead of asking your candidate to adjust to your workplace, why aren't we adjusting the workplace to meet this very talented candidate's needs? And I think that that can be done, and you can still run a highly successful company while doing that. And then you can't treat everyone equally, because maybe not everyone is equal yet, and there are different needs, and we need to be flexible and support these different needs. And that is how we can have a workplace that retains the best talent from a more diverse work pool. So I'm going to stop sharing. That is my presentation for today, and I welcome any questions.
Thanks, Sara. That was fantastic. Really appreciate you providing all those insights. We got a question from, how do you keep the culture going remotely?
We already have been remote, meaning probably 40% of our people go into our solution centers and 60% are remote. So we do a lot of different things. We've been doing virtual happy hour for 5 years already on Zoom and on video, so you can recreate the kind of end of day chit chat that happens and learn more about people. And now we have themes, so sometimes it'll be name that tune or other kinds of things. We have different teams within our team that are responsible for leading them and coming up with it. So we do that. We really do try to do Zoom video calls when we are meeting with people, so that you're still making that connection. We use Salesforce internally, so we have chatter groups set up. We have chatter groups for fun. We have chatter groups for pets. We have chatter groups, so people can still post, first day of school, they get all the kids' pictures up there, or their pet pictures, and some of that, helps with a remote workplace to still have connections with people and know about them. That's, information about them that's outside of the workforce. And then once a year, we do bring everyone together and then, have a big event. Our headquarters are at a beach resort in Florida, so everyone loves to come down to the beach and get together in person. And we try to make it not only informative, but also fun and team building and bonding for that. But I welcome any other ideas. We think about it a lot, and I'm sure there's great ideas out there that we could do more of.
I'm sure people have tons of ideas. So if you have any, pop them in the chat. We have like 2 more questions coming in. So this one I think is a 2-parter. So Sara, have you seen the extending parental leave and making that more readily available to employees helps maintain retention?
I do. You know, we have a concept called responsible time off is one of them. So it's not a set amount of sick hours or personal days that you get every year. We expect people to be responsible, and you don't earn it when you come in. You don't have to be here 3 years to get 3 weeks of vacation or something. We have to get approval at a certain level if it's a longer period of time. But I think what's lucky about consulting and project work is that if we know something is coming up, we can staff around and get other people to cover. So people can choose to take off a year if they want. It's not paid for the year, but they won't lose their job. And they can come back. But I think that's the beauty of consulting work and projects. Our teams are constantly morphing and changing, and we staff up and staff down, and sometimes ask people to work more hours, and sometimes we don't have as much work. But we can support people's need to sometimes take time off, and that without losing their job or without it penalizing them, and that helps us retain. We have great retention. I think less than 5% leave our company, which is a very low number for the industry that we're in.
Another question, what do you think is the biggest challenge of remote work?
I think building that culture, and I think having the connection, and also we still struggle, for example, with people straight out of college that are newer to consulting. Our preference pre-COVID was to still have them coming into a solution center to get more of the bonding with the team and the experience, and the other just soft skills that aren't always trained in college. So in a post, in a COVID world, will that be harder, or will we take more risk with that than we have done in the past? So I think those are some of the challenges that we haven't solved.
Another interesting question, what is your participation level in virtual events, and do you see that declining over time?
Well, right now, I think this is an example. Our participation in virtual events is going up because it's the only way to be attending events. I think virtual events will grow ultimately as a result of this, because the cost of travel and the time to travel precludes a lot of people from going to these events. And certainly if you have these other responsibilities outside of work, in addition to the cost and the time, it's difficult to get to. And virtual webinars can open it up to a lot more people who even live in Hawaii, for example. Our next speaker is in Hawaii. Having said that, I think that it's a struggle to make sure you do it well so that you can still have the networking feel of it. And I think that will improve with time. So I think overall virtual events will go up, but I think everyone will be ready for some in-person ones too when it opens back up.
I have a feeling that will be the case. What is your advice for solo consultants just getting started? How do I find clients?
Well, there's certainly, I think, a lot of networking. I think even on the Salesforce App Exchange, you might be able to post your availability to do work. I'm not 100% certain because it's been a little while since I've been in that position. But there's also, the Salesforce ecosystem is huge with user groups and women in tech groups. And like the Salesforce user groups often have a lot of clients that come to it. And so that would be another way that you can get your name out there and sell yourself a little bit and network. But probably, I think within Salesforce, and someone can correct me if they know more about that, about in some of their chatter groups of saying your availability and what your skill set is. And I presume maybe you've tried that, but I would presume people are always looking for Salesforce talent. Oh, and also you can 1099 to other consulting partners. We have some 1099 people, and that's a way to have someone else help find the clients for you, but still get the work and maybe put your parameters about how much you want to work or what your skill set is.
Thank you so much, Sara. That was great. With that, I will leave it to Deena to go ahead and take it away with her presentation.
What I planned to do today was to answer a question that I get asked all the time. And this came to me as we were talking with Sara about entrepreneurship. But the question that's asked by people kind of from a variety of paths. Some people are just starting out in their careers in technology. Some people ask me this question who are further along and have a lot of experience. And the question is, how did you do it? So as stated, my name is Deena Tearney, and I'm the founder and CEO of Pacific Point. We're a consulting firm that helps clients in the public and private sectors implement Salesforce solutions, which enable them to innovate and grow their businesses. I've been an entrepreneur for over 9 years, and I'm excited to share my story and answer the question, how did you do it? The short answer is that I think like a CEO, and that's really what our topic is today. Think is really the key word. I'm going to share 3 mindset takeaways that each of you can apply today as I tell you a little bit of my entrepreneurial journey and also some stories from my career prior to being a founder, which really helped me start to reinforce these mindsets. The first thing is to think like a CEO is to cast a vision. You hear a lot about vision and the importance of having a vision, but it really is a part of your mindset. It's in your own self, looking ahead and visualizing how you see yourself, what it's all in your mind's eye, what you're seeing in the future. And more importantly, I think why vision is very important, especially as today, is it drives your daily actions. It helps you have hope even in the day-to-day, right? As you're working through something, you're thinking about that long-term vision that you have. And I think especially right now, we all need a lot of hope. So a vision is a good way to gain some of that. My vision for Pacific Point is to become the preferred CRM consulting partner in the Pacific region and to maintain our leadership position in Hawaii. The vision for our company is to have a corporate culture of trust and professionalism, accountability, and mutual respect for the team, and to foster an environment of growth and learning for our consulting team. The vision for our social impact is based on a feeling that we have an inherent responsibility to give back, specifically to youth, by encouraging and empowering them to pursue careers in technology. My vision drives the actions that I take each and every day, and I make a choice to go after my vision because I can see it in my mind. 9 years ago, I founded Pacific Point. Based on the dynamics that were happening here in Hawaii, people didn't really know me. I'm not originally from Hawaii, and people didn't really know of me with my CRM background. My background is, I've done a lot of CRM consulting over the years for the traditional big 5 consulting firms, but in Hawaii, I didn't have that kind of brand equity yet. So I wasn't necessarily known for my past in CRM. So I started by selling general consulting services, specifically the disciplines of project management and business analysis. I targeted the largest companies in Hawaii. And as the revenue started to come in, then I personally started to work on smaller Salesforce projects and really began to grow the base of our company. I leveraged the past experience that I had in CRM, and I did everything I could to make those engagements very valuable to our customers. And it was about, I would say, 4 years ago that we fully transitioned from all of those generalist IT services to the point that now Salesforce consulting services represent over 90% of our revenue. And this was a big accomplishment towards our vision of being positioned as the leading CRM Salesforce consulting partner in the state of Hawaii. So as I started to gain my footing in Hawaii, I started looking for growth. And I was looking for growth a long time ago. It was over 5 years ago that I was exploring growth outside of Hawaii. At the time, I already had a US, outside of Hawaii based team that was distributed. And I was exploring growth options both in the US and internationally. I was looking at Australia and New Zealand. I was exploring Asiana. I even had my eyes on Japan. And about a year and a half ago, I settled in on focusing our international expansion into Australia and Singapore. There are so many reasons that this made sense for us. And by the end of 2020, we'd established the Australian Pacific Point entity and hired our first full-time employees. And by earlier this year, we've established our Singapore Pacific Point entity. And as for the US, we've centralized our team in San Francisco in the Bay Area and also the Denver metro area. And of course, our headquarters are here in Honolulu. And these moves were very strategic and another big set of accomplishments towards our vision of growth in the Pacific. In addition, this month, we were just named an Inc. 5000 company, which means that we're one of the fastest growing privately held companies in America. And when I take a step back, I really realized that this achievement of growth was because we were laser focused on that vision. Our vision was what was driving all those daily actions that we took, which accelerated our growth. So I don't know if you guys remember this or if you did it, but many years ago, there was a thing that was sort of popular to do where you would write a resume, a future state resume or a CV of yourself. And on this resume, you might write a summary like seasoned Salesforce consulting, consultant, or an experienced expert in leading organizations through rapid change. And you might have some jobs or titles on there with some roles that you envision to help you, through that journey to get to that end state. And maybe you're thinking about being an engineer, or learning some special technology, and then moving into leadership. And this act of envisioning what you wanted to be, how you wanted to be thought of, what you wanted to be known for, I think it's the perfect example of how you can have a vision today and right now really begin thinking like a CEO. And even when the days are tough, and there's going to be some tough days, a vision really helps you have perspective and hope, and it keeps you motivated. And having a vision also enables your progress and action as you go about each and every day, today, tomorrow, the next, and it gives you that sense of purpose. So acknowledging the road is tough and accomplishing that vision is difficult. We at Pacific Point have hit, and me personally, have hit some bumps along the way. So how do you think like a CEO when you have challenges, which you're going to have? This is my second point, is to control the things you can control. And another way to put this is put in the work. And right now, I use the phrase control the things you can control because we're in the midst of this pandemic. And I think there's this sense of just so much uncertainty and that feeling of maybe sometimes feeling a little out of control. So, right now when we look at our own company, and I'm sure many companies are doing the same, we're adapting. We're controlling the things that we can control. And in our environment, and maybe many of you see this in your own jobs and what you're seeing on a daily basis, just in the real world that we all live in, is that companies are seeking fast solutions. They want to leverage our consulting team differently than they have in years past. Clients are asking to do more with less. And while I may wish for a different scenario of maybe longer term projects that we were accustomed to, or being able to put many people on an individual project because that's better for me, that isn't really what people are doing much of in this current state. So what I can control is what I do and how I respond to that. And so I've doubled down on really elevating the skill of our team, as Sara said, in a calculated way, really thinking about every move, even more so than ever. But always, this has been a lifelong thing, right? To always think about every decision that's made and what I can control. I can control maybe where I spend my money, what my hiring practices are for our company, and anything I can do to help me enable and respond to our clients more effectively in this environment. So controlling the things you can control is a very empowering move. And I'm no longer at the complete mercy of the pandemic where life just happens to me. Instead, in my mind and in my actions, I'm a navigator, and I'm kind of navigating the situation as best as I can. And it's definitely tough. But I can remember, maybe somebody somewhere along in my career had said, and maybe it was in the middle of a go live or some, thing that happened in a project. An old boss had said, all we can control is ourselves. And so when you have those challenges, just thinking about that has really been a way for me throughout my career, and including now as a CEO, to take control as best as I can. It's another kind of smaller thing, especially now, I think with pandemic, and maybe you guys can relate. I feel like there's some little things that you can do that just give you that sense of motivation or making progress towards something. But I've been trying out recipes. I'm sure many of you have, and I'm not talking about boiling an egg. I'm talking about, doing something a little different. And I know for me, I never thought I would make chicken tikka masala, and I made it, and it was great. It was a lot of work. It wasn't too crazy, but it's now become a thing that I regularly do. And that action of accomplishing something, and that small act kind of gives me that boost sometimes that I need to be like, okay, I can control something, and I got this. Another example I'll give you is when I first started out my career, I was a software engineer. It was my first job. And it was at the time when the dot-com bubble was big, before the bust. And everyone at the time wanted to be a web developer. And I worked for a large corporate, and I went to my boss and I told him, I want to move to the web team. I'm pretty sure he was annoyed with me, but his words that came out, looking back, I'm pretty sure he was annoyed with me, but he said, Deena, the only person in charge of your career is you. And now that phrase that he told me, in probably a spirit of annoyance towards me, is a phrase that I use so often, and I repeat it so many times as just this inspirational quote for me very early in my career. It was empowering, and I think liberating to some extent, to realize, I shouldn't come to him and necessarily expect anything from him. I can certainly ask for his support, but it was time for me to take control. And so what I did was I reached out to the web team. I spoke to the managers in those areas, told them about my experience, which at the time wasn't very much, other than maybe some college work. I expressed my eagerness to join the team, and I was persistent. And eventually I did make the transition to the web team. And eventually from there, from web team into the CRM team. But it's an example of how, you today can control, what you can control, and begin to think like a CEO. I have one more point for you, to begin to think like a CEO. And this might be the most difficult one of all. It's to never give up. I love the quote from Jay-Z when he was being interviewed talking about all the success that he had. And he said, the genius thing we did was we didn't give up. That act, that mindset is really what makes the difference. When I started Pacific Point, I bid on countless RFPs, and I lost a lot of them. And I've had people say to me, are you gonna move back to the mainland now that you didn't get that project? Or maybe move back to Texas? I've heard people say, are you gonna bid again? And it's that shock of just like, I can't believe you are still at it, after all those missteps. And, maybe it was a little bit of making fun, a little bit of insulting, a little bit of surprise, and maybe shock, I guess. There's another time I was pregnant in the first couple years of the business and starting Pacific Point. And I had a surprising number of people who asked me if I was going to continue running Pacific Point and continue with the company after I had the baby. And it's all those things were kind of like, you really feel like, should I be giving up? What's going on, right? And for my company and me personally, I think, there's any number of times that I could say that we may not have been taken seriously. I've had HR issues at the company. I've had client issues. I've had tough financial decisions to make that I didn't want to face. And there's so many times when you might feel that pressure of, gosh, is it worth it? Am I doing the right thing, right? And the road isn't easy. But having a vision helps me stay motivated and focused. Controlling what I can control helps me be empowered to move forward. And having the strength of mind and belief in what I'm doing to never give up, that is how I did it. So that's pretty much all I have to share today. Please feel free to ask anything. I'll put up a slide that recaps what I just said, and you guys can screenshot it, put it in your camera roll for future reference, and look back on it and say, oh yeah, I remember that. So yeah, I'll open it up for questions, but yeah, if you guys want to take, I know I take screenshots of things that I see, and I'll save them and then look back on them later, so feel free to do the same. But thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Deena. A couple of questions we did have was, how do you remain calm when taking risks with your business?
It's hard. It's hard to remain calm. I think, like I said, for me, feeling confident about the vision that I've cast and really thinking about it. I think right now, especially as we're taking calculated risks, it's always been the case from day one of the company, and I'm sure in every aspect, even prior to being a founder, right? You're calculating risk, you're weighing the pros and cons, and you're thinking about that. And when you can accept the risk of something, it helps you remain a bit calm. And if you don't feel comfortable with that risk, then you shouldn't. That's my take. I don't think you should proceed if you don't feel comfortable. If it doesn't sit right, take a breather.
Another person wants to know, how do you go from the tech side of things into the sales side of things? What are the similarities and differences that make it a challenge?
That's a really great question. I was never a salesperson, and honestly, I was worried about it. Even when I was, I worked for Capgemini and IBM Global Services, big consulting firms prior to moving to Hawaii. And, there's a couple times I helped on some sales pursuits, and I thought, gosh, there's no way I could put myself out there like this. And it's a totally different side of your mind. But what I realized, first of all, was I overcame a bit of a fear of getting myself out there and talking to customers. That's probably step one. But what I think is really key is, it's interesting because I understand my product so well because it's what I do. And sometimes I think salespeople that may sell technology, software, hardware, and professional services, if they haven't been in those shoes, they can't speak to it as strongly. And so I think when you leverage that and go, you know what, I actually get what I sell. I get the pain points of my customer and I really understand them. It helps you alleviate that fear and be like, hey, I know this is my world. So there is a big benefit for technologists who come from that background to now transition to sales because they get it, they know it.
Someone else wanted to know, what drives you, Deena, every single day to keep striving for success and the development of your business?
I think the most fundamental thing is I love technology and I love how it helps our businesses and our clients. And so when you see the reward of that and you know that you're making a difference and you're really helping people and you're doing something you enjoy, every morning you can keep on moving forward. You feel confident about the fact that you're delivering value. And I personally also like technology because it's always changing. There's always some new thing that we can talk about, that we can try. And I think those two things together, the reward of knowing that you're helping somebody else with some innovative technology like Salesforce. And I think also that the love of technology and always trying to connect the two together from the business side and the technology side.
A couple more questions. Someone else asked, when facing an unknown in working towards a new position, especially after seeing maybe standoffish or perhaps annoyed higher up, where did you find the guts to go for what you wanted?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think in a big corporate or any kind of environment where there's a hierarchy and every place has one, whether it's even written on a piece of paper or it's just inherent in the dynamics of the culture. I think it's important to understand that dynamic. It could be a higher up, but there might be someone else that's influential. And if you can have increased visibility to the people that may have influence, whether or not that person, on the org chart is higher up, I think that's a way to navigate, trying to move around within an organization and get to that next level. In some of my jobs before, I've absolutely had to navigate that and figure out who are kind of those influencers. How can I show them the value that I bring? How can I show them the knowledge and expertise and figure out ways that I can maybe run a project or do something for them where I can demonstrate my ability to them. So I would say, sometimes it's not always just as black and white as it may seem. So if you can find an opportunity to prove yourself and raise visibility in other areas, sometimes you can drown out the annoyed person or whatever the situation is.
What kind of client issues did you encounter and how did you mitigate the issue? And then also, what was your process to expand your business internationally?
So on the first one, client issues are going to come up. I mean, I think it's inevitable. A customer expects this, but they only paid for this or said they wanted this in their scope. And so you're always kind of navigating some of those challenges. Sometimes we have to make a change on our side to adapt to a changing requirement. And so we have to kind of work that out with them and make them feel comfortable. So those are the most common things that happen with customers, is just sort of a mismatch as things progress throughout the project of what their expectations may be. And so continuously setting those expectations and working with them is the key on all of those things. And whether or not you're in consulting, I mean, even in industry, you're doing that with the business all the time, right? Constantly setting their expectations. People think like, it's technology, doesn't it already do that? Isn't it just magic? You just press the button and it's amazing. I've seen the demo, it's great. But there's more things to work out. And so having that patience to kind of work through it with the customer is, I think, key. And those are the kinds of, quote, client issues that I think happen. As far as the international expansion, I approached it, as I said, I mean, it was a long time. I knew very early that I wanted to look outside of Hawaii. And so I researched, there's actually a federal organization that helps with the export of goods and services outside of Hawaii, outside of the US. So if you are interested in organizations like that, there's a bunch of them depending on what state you live in. And I pinged them. I just did a lot of research, talked to them about different countries that might have an interest. I did visits. Salesforce has a lot of events that happen throughout the world. And so I attended events like World Tour in other areas, and I went to partner forums so I could learn more about what was happening. And I just really immersed myself in it as best as I could, but I took my time with it. As you guys got from that, it definitely took some time because I wanted to make sure that before you talked about the calculated risk, before you jump all in on something like that, you want to make sure that you can, you've got all of your ducks aligned to be ready for it.
Deena, thank you so much. Fantastic presentation.
I had a quick question. Both can kind of provide your insights on, but obviously both of you being, successful CEOs and starting your businesses, I guess, what do you each think is the single, if there is a single, most important aspect, whether it be like mindset or a certain skill that you think benefited you the most in being able to grow your business?
It's a lot of work. I think similar to Deena, and great presentation. I was a computer science major. What I know really well is technical solutions and implementing projects. I wasn't in sales. I certainly didn't know details of health benefits. I didn't know about unemployment insurance rules. So when you start your own business, you just have to figure a whole bunch of stuff out or figure out where to outsource it, and there's no one else that you can go to and quit. So you do have to do a lot of things that may be out of what you believe your strength is. And you just you gotta do it, and you gotta get it done, and you gotta outsource when you can, and find the right people and keep moving forward. But I know, at least for me personally, it was a lot of work, but it can be done.
No, 100%. It is a lot of work. And I think there's so many things that you have to tap into to move a business forward, that Sara, she knows, everyone knows, right? That even in your career, there's a million skill sets you have to tap into. I think as a business owner, the one thing I would say is you've got to lean on trusting your intuition and your gut, because you'll hear so much. And you'll, even like the health benefit thing, right? Like you said, you'll hear a bunch of stuff and it's like something doesn't sound quite, if it doesn't sit well. So leaning on that, I think, has been a really good, because there's so much to know, as Sara pointed out. And I think of trusting your instincts and leaning on your gut instincts is really important.
I do actually have a question for both of you. What inspired you guys to take that leap and start your own businesses?
I don't know if it was, well, actually I do know what actually inspired us. So when we moved here to this beach resort in Florida, I had already been staying at home, working 24/7 for free for about 8 years, but my husband had retired from a big consulting firm, and it was 2008, and it was right when the real estate bust hit Florida. And, I was volunteering and trying to raise money for schools, and my children's best friends' parents were foreclosing on their homes and losing all their businesses to because where we lived, we went from the fastest growing county to the one with the highest unemployment because it was all tourism and real estate. It was a bubble that got burst. And we got motivated that instead of, the best way that we could help our community was through creating a diverse industry for them, and technology enabled that. So we could actually help our community get technology jobs in an area that was really hurt. So that actually was the inspiration to start it. I love that you had a vision, Deena. I had I was probably more reactionary and transactional, and I joke, Tim and I complement each other well. He always worries about sales and I worry about delivery. The intent for starting it was less on us growing it to what it became today, as much as how could we best help. But once we got into it, we got motivated and it's working. And what I personally love was that I could do it from anywhere, and I could meet these other priorities outside of my work, and I could give that opportunity to other people. And that is incredibly motivating to keep it going. So that was what gave us the strength. And I don't think I thought about the bigger picture, or it probably would have intimidated me. Also, as soon as anyone says you can't do something, that makes me want to prove them wrong. So there's a little bit of character in there that likes to go get it done. So to you, Deena, what do you think?
Yeah, no, that's true. And I don't know that I would have ever thought about probably doing something like this unless there was a need. And I think you mentioned your need too, and solving a problem for yourself. And I think when I moved to Hawaii, for me, you look at the size of Honolulu and its population, and you sort of assume, okay, it's America, it's just like every other city of a similar population. And I quickly realized it's not quite that when it comes to technology talent. Our pool is much smaller. So anyways, I realized that when I was trying to staff up a big program, I was like, oh yeah, here's the job descriptions. And then I started seeing the candidates and I was like, wow, this is really not what I expected. And it was at that moment, really early on my move to Hawaii, that I realized that'd be good if someone could crack that nut. And I had 2 other jobs before I started the firm, and it was reaffirmed, that I really wanted Hawaii to not necessarily lower their expectations just because they were so far. They're like, oh, it's expensive, and to travel, like Sara said that she traveled every week for work. There were a lot of consultants that you're going to travel to Hawaii every week. It's expensive on customers here, and so I thought it would be good to figure out a way to solve that resource issue. And I wanted to bring CRM because there was no one doing it. And so those 2 things kind of came together after being here for a few years and wanting to just give it a go. And this is another calculated risk, because I was like, well, if people don't want to do it, what's the downside? Okay, go get another job. All right. And so I think if you have that, if you've calculated it and you're okay with accepting the scenario, that's kind of where I looked at it from even day one.
I've actually got a question for you guys. When exploring a vast marketplace while trying to open your own businesses, how did you find trusted resources to propel your business forward?
For me, I asked around. I think just Salesforce could be a resource, or any partner that you may have worked with in the past. Asking helped a lot, and researching, and I go back to that following your gut instincts, because there's sometimes you just feel like that doesn't feel right, and so you'll just be like, all right, I'm gonna try another company for this particular service or whatever. And we do work with a lot of subcontractors that we have to trust really well to deliver maybe a subset of work on a project. Yeah, it's tough sometimes to, you gotta vet them and feel comfortable with them. But I've asked around a lot, and I've had, we're a Velocity partner, a MuleSoft partner, and I'll just ask sometimes, hey, who do you have that might be able to help with this particular thing? If it's something that's kind of newer or something that we haven't really dabbled in, then I'll just ask.
So we used our network a lot to get trusted resources from our, previous business life to get started. And then we also just took chances on people. That's the beauty of it, is that, we ask them to get certified before we'll consider interviewing them. And that rules out a lot of people that sound good, but maybe might decide they don't actually like sitting and doing the configuration work, or didn't have the aptitude to do it. So, I think networking was that, and then trial and error. And then we started, learning some trends of what worked well for us and what didn't work well for us when hiring people. But it's generally worked, which has been great.
One thing I've come across is a lot of people can talk the talk, but then when you ask them to walk the walk, they can't. Was it all gut instinct, Deena, where like, you know, you were able to feel that out, or was it you kind of did some research as well and then kind of figured it out from there?
I think it depends on what it is that you're looking for. If I feel like I can ask enough to ask, then I will. If we're talking about recruiting, I have a TA that will grill them and ask a bunch of questions, and then they'll hand them off to me. If it's companies, I'll definitely ask for, you know, like I said, ask others, get references, you know, feel comfortable with that. But if I don't feel like I have the expertise to know whether or not a partner or an employee, potential hire, a subcontractor, any of those things, if I don't feel like I have enough knowledge, I'll try to do as best as I can. And I think to Sarah's point, there's times when I'm like, oh, I'll just take a chance. And it goes back to that calculated risk. Like, okay, if it in this situation, is it okay, right? And then you just sort of, you know, be ready to react quickly if it's not.
Awesome, thank you for that.
Well, thank you again, guys, so much, both of you. But we really appreciate you guys joining us.